American Goldfinch. The American goldfinch has a wide range across North America, which includes Alberta to the US East Coast in the summer when it's breeding and sporting its full bright yellow plumage after the spring molt, to the Canadian border down to Mexico near in winter when it is in its second year pre-molt phase, showing a more dull brown shade. Feeding mainly on a diet of seed heads, it can become territorial during nest construction and until eggs are laid, but is otherwise a naturally sociable species gathering in large flocks during the migratory phase of the year. The male is dominant amongst others until breeding occurs, when the female then takes the dominant role. House finch. The house finch is a close relative of both the purple and Cassin's finch. With territory ranging from western North America to introduced habitat in Hawaii, the house finch also frequents areas in southern Canada to northern Mexico. The male of the species derives its intense colours from its diet, which is dictated by how many fruits and berries it has to access throughout the year. As well as berries and fruits, it forages on the ground for weed seeds such as dandelion and nettle, as well as seed heads from native fauna. The house finch is a cavity nester, preferring to construct nests in building openings and outdoor decorations such as hanging plants, and is built solely by the female in a very short space of time. Common redpoll. The common redpoll has a vast range which extends through northern Europe and Asia to North America and Greenland. Specimens that live in Greenland tend to be much bigger and darker than those that frequent and breed in Alaska and Canada. This bird especially loves to feed on catkins in birch trees and on rural garden feeders in winter, as well as weed seeds in the grass fields where they live. Common redpolls can regularly be seen travelling in huge flocks of several hundred individuals and are keen semi-migrants. During the winter months they have been known to travel as far as South and Central America, which is a far cry from their usual preference of Arctic tundra and boreal forested areas. Purple finch. The purple finch can be found mainly in the northeastern states of the country as well as southern Canada, and was once prevalent in the eastern United States but has seen a decline in its population there due to competition from the house finch and the recently introduced house sparrow. Despite this, its conservation status is of least concern as breeding populations seem to be thriving elsewhere. During breeding season it favours coniferous lowland areas, although some like to nest closer to heavily populated urban areas. Purple finches like to forage in bushes and other vegetation for food, eating a mixture of insects, berries and seeds, with a strong preference for sunflower seeds, millet and thistle. Evening grosbeak. The evening grosbeak is one of only two species of grosbeak classified as a finch to be found in North America. Other American-based grosbeaks belong to other bird families such as the rosy-breasted grosbeak, which is part of the cardinal family. They are social birds often found in flocks, especially in the winter months. Evening grosbeaks like to forage in conifer treetops for insect larvae during the summer, buds in the spring and seeds and berries and small fruits in the winter. As they move south late on in the year, they can be seen in urban gardens on feeders, before moving on to mountainous areas in the western states to begin nesting and breeding. Cassin's finch. The Cassin's finch predominantly forages in trees and sometimes in ground vegetation in order to fulfill their dietary requirements of seeds, berries, buds and small insects. This bird craves salt and is often found visiting ground-based mineral deposits. Found throughout the mountainous western states during the breeding season, the Cassin's finch often frequents the evergreen forest of northern Mexico and Arizona, with non-breeding specimens migrating even further south of the border into central Mexico over the winter months. The Cassin's finch is a highly accomplished mimic and so regularly adds the calls of other species into its own songs. Pine grosbeak. The pine grosbeak, despite its name, spends most of the year in conifer, spruce and fir forests, only visiting pines in the winter months. It is known to be extremely tame, allowing very close approach by humans, often sitting motionless in dense vegetation areas as unsuspecting birders pass by. During the nesting season, the pine grosbeak forages in small flocks where it feeds on buds, seeds and fruits in high trees and shrubs. Both parents share an equal part in feeding young, and both sexes develop throat pouches which allows them to carry more food back to their chicks. Due to its eruptive nature, pine grosbeak populations are hard to count, and so this bird is regarded as a species that requires careful number monitoring. Grey-crowned Rosy-Finch. The grey-crowned Rosy-Finch is a hardy bird which prefers to nest in the highest elevations of the Rocky and Sierra Nevada mountains, making it hard to find even in its own range. However, recent sightings at Northwestern University in Illinois, the first in 33 years, have created a huge buzz in the birding community. The grey-crowned Rosy-Finch usually moves in large flocks, descending to lower elevations in the winter to feed on insects and seeds found on the low alpine snowfields. The most prevalent of the Rosy-Finches, this bird can be seen on garden feeders in urban areas when other food in its diet becomes scarce. Brown-capped Rosy-Finch. The brown-capped Rosy-Finch, just like its close relative the grey-crowned Rosy-Finch, is a unique high-elevation specialist able to survive in some of North America's most rugged terrains at altitudes upwards of 14,000 feet. In summer they forage for seeds and insects near the melting edges of snowfields, whilst in winter they gather in large flocks and often move into populated areas seeking food around buildings and garden feeders. Climate change is likely to affect this bird's isolated high-peak habitat in years to come, but as of yet they are fairly steady with regards to population sizes, despite being uncommon in easily explorable areas. Pine Siskin. The pine siskin has a huge area of territory which covers the western and northern US states, Alaska and most of Canada. Due to its range, they only tend to migrate if food supplies are sparse in winter, and so barring the pine forest they occur in, they can often be seen in human-populated areas where gardens have bushes and shrubs, as well as feeders containing nutritious seeds. Unlike their close Eurasian relatives, pine siskins are rather drab in appearance, sporting a dull streaked plumage present in both sexes. There are specimens that have green colouring closer to the look of the more brighter yellow Eurasian species, but these only make up around 1% of the entire population.